Welcome back to Worth Your Effort Woodworking for our 2020 shop tour. It's kind of a chance every year I have to reintroduce myself to all these new followers that we have and show them what I have acquired in the shop to accomplish the tasks I do. And for those that have been following me for a long time, you can kind of see some of the new stuff I've acquired. Basically, two major tools this year. It's also a good chance for kind of a reset for me to critique what I've done in the past year and offer up a discussion of plans for the future and maybe get some feedback from y'all so that maybe I don't go off in the wrong direction or something like that. It's an open discussion of where we've been, where we're going, and what we currently have. So welcome to the 2020 shop tour. Now, quick overview. I've now been in this warehouse for 5 years now, and I was the first tenant of this warehouse. It's a brand new building. It is about 900, maybe 850 square feet. I kind of forget. But because of a lot of the building codes and stuff like that, we had this huge restroom that was set off of it for wheelchair compliance and stuff like that, and they didn't want a door in front. So plus, I built a little office right there for me to get out of the heat during summertime because this is an unair-conditioned, unheated warehouse. So I really only have about 450 square feet of woodworking area. The very back corner is just kind of some personal storage stuff that isn't woodworking related. So in relation to a normal garage, I would say this is like a 1.5 car garage. I know I could get my pickup truck in here and open the doors and not hit any walls, but that's about it. And what's cool is, well, when I moved in here, I never really liked this location. It's just kind of what I could afford at the time when I was removing. I always kind of go off of these 5-year plans. This being the 5th year, we're looking for some options. And my dad and parents have just recently downsized and are starting to build a house, and he's planning on building a little pole barn, about 400, maybe 500 square feet, in the back lot of their land. So instead of throwing money renting to a big corporation, I'd rather just throw money to them and rent for the same amount from them. And me and my dad are kind of planning on combining our workshops. And y'all seen him in a lot of my past videos. So with that in mind, a lot of the stuff you're going to see me pointing out, I'm also going to tell you that things are going to be changing over this new year. And that's going to kind of dictate some of the videos I'm going to be producing, some of the content. So, let's walk around real quickly and I'll talk about what I have and what's probably going to change over this next year and content you can expect. Now, this backdrop you see in a lot of my videos, it really isn't a backdrop. This is actually how I prefer to store my tools. I like the fact that I can work here, I can turn around, grab a tool, use it, and put it right back. It means that my workbench never really gets cluttered and I know where everything is. And I've written in Popular Woodworking about this setup. It's a dovetail cleat. I basically, if I want to put a tool here, I drill a hole. And if I don't need to use it anymore, I just flush cut whatever bit I had and put another one in here. I find it to be the most flexible tool storage unit they have. And this is pretty much it. I don't have drawers filled with a lot of tools. This is all I've had and I've collected over probably the past 20 years of woodworking. That's going to change. Going into combined shop, Dad's a big-time wood turner, lots more dust is going to be around. I'm probably going to either have to build a true cabinet that I can close up or more traditional work chest, tool chest, which I've always despised those, but that might just be the way I go. So, over this next year, at some point in time, I'm going to have a major project build where I build a tool chest of some sort. So that's coming out. I'm really going to miss my tool wall. Or should I say walls? Because here's the stuff I don't use as much. Here's some base turning stuff. Here's the turning stuff I use every single time. I just really have liked having my tools on the walls for easy access. Now my workbench is, I guess, the bastard love child of a Roubaud and the English style. It's basically just a big slab with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 Morrison tenon joints. It's a super simple build out of solid poplar. And I got a huge order of 12-quarter poplar back when I started my first woodworking school, and I built 13 workbenches out of that and some glue lamp. This was the odd one of the duck because all of them were 8 feet long, and this one's only 7 feet long. They're a little bit less than 2 feet across. So I always use that one as my teacher's one. And when the school closed, I kind of sold all those workbenches to cover some debts and help the moving cost to get to this place right here. It's a nice bench. It's not hard. I can get it up in my trunk by myself. I want to say it's probably about 350 pounds. I need to tell you, I love the design, but I built this along with all those other ones for an average sized person. I've always wanted to build one specifically for me. Maybe a tad bit shorter, little design elements that would fit my body a little bit better. And with me going into a combine shop with my dad, this might make not a lot of sense to you, but I like to actually have a second workbench. I would love to be able to push this behind me and have a lot of my appliances, like my twin screw, maybe a shooting board or stuff like that, just kind of out permanently, and put in a chest of drawers down here for all my tools, and then have just a big, huge, heavy bench built specifically for me. So I'm kind of tossing around maybe doing a bench build through the year, or maybe building 3 benches and selling 2 to cover the cost of it. So if you're in Texas and you're wanting a simple bench like this, drop me a line and maybe we can work something out. I'd also love to get those bench crafted vices. I tried some of those before. I fell in love with them. The wood screws are nice that I use. I did those because I had to build 4 for every single workbench I had in the school so that 4 people could take a class at each workbench. So the wood screws was the most economical and efficient way to do that one. But if I'm only building one, maybe I could splurge a little bit and get some really nice vices. Coming around the bench, I had me a very nice hand sharpening setup. I've got a 6-inch grinder. I never use this wheel. This wheel is a 36-inch grind for hollow grinding all my chisels and planes and stuff like that. And then I have my stone set up right here. So whenever I'm working at my bench, it's a simple turnaround, grind, hone, get back to work. I love having the setup. And the drawer underneath it has all my sharpening appliances in there. Now, you will notice these tables. I have 3 of them, and I use them throughout. These were some of the first things I built back in my old efficiency apartment to house some power tools I had at the time. And this one's kind of always been the grinder station. I want you to notice this for a reason, because there's going to be a theme in some of the projects I do this year, because a lot of these projects are going to be shop-based. I think wrong, and I know that as an educator. There's no reason why plywood box, pocket holes on the end, combine them, put a sheet on back to lock it in square, using that isn't going to work in a shop. It's a perfectly valid way to build. My problem has always been, though, that what did the experience of building that get you? I mean, if your goal is to build kitchen cabinets, that's a great experience to have. If your goal is to build chairs, chests, all that kind of stuff, you're not going to use the techniques and skills you developed building that shop equipment. The reason why I built this right here is because I wanted to explore Morrison tenon joinery. All these are hand-done Morrison tenon joints on all 3 of the tables. I wanted to explore building a big breadboard ends on a table. This is not a great table. The drawer kind of binds on me. It's not perfect. It's just a box. But it was a good learning experience that when I did start building nicer tables, I was quicker with them. This probably took me twice as long to build as just a plywood box. But my next project that was more important to me, I had the skills and goes along. And it went along that way. So that's kind of going to be a recurring theme you see on this channel, because I am very educational based. I want you to get something out of the experience of building that you can apply elsewhere. So when you see us building stuff like router tables or just new benches and stuff like that, we're going to be exploring joinery and stuff so that you can learn from the whole thing. Now, moving around the shop, you will see that I have a mechanicals tool chest. That's for my wrenches and stuff like that, mainly tool maintenance and, you know, machine work, engines, that kind of stuff. All those tools are in there. Don't use them that much, but it's kind of nice having a metal toolbox for my metalworking tools. And then you'll notice a new acquisition this year, or actually a new borrowed thing this year, because when my parents sold their house and they moved in an apartment, he wanted to put all his shop in a storage unit except for a few items that he wanted to have access through throughout the year. One of them was his one-way lathe. This was the first large lathe he purchased, 15 years ago, and about 5 years ago he got him a nice robust, but he liked having both lathes. So this one came here, as well as a huge tool chest where we could store, all his gouges and all his stuff that he likes to have. And looking at this, you can tell Dad likes doing finishing a lot more than I do. I mean, it is just covered with dyes, stains, shellac drippings, all that kind of stuff. And that lathe I got right there, it just covered with shellac when I got it too. So, Dad and I are going to have to work on some things. I'm going to have to get probably a lot more finishy, and maybe he'll start wiping off some stuff. Who knows? But that's kind of when you're coming together two shops, they're going to be different personalities going there. But he's had this for many years, and he just likes having this style of storage for all his stuff. Along with, I have fallen in love with his grinders. He hates my fried wheel grinders, so I'm using his CBN wheels, and they're magical. I wish I could have gone to those a long time ago. Really nice being able to just lock in the settings and not have to worry about the wheels changing diameter or all that dust that they make, and it cuts a lot faster, and you don't have to worry about the steels overheating on them because they're basically a huge metal sink themselves. CBN wheels are just awesome in the turning world. But coming back to the lathe I now have access to, a nice 1640. It's a 2 horsepower motor, good 16 inches clearance, 40 inches for the side. You'll also notice there's an extension I put on that side, just kind of as a tray, that can be moved down to this side. So I can turn just a really long, like a bedpost or something like that. And you'll also notice where I keep all my turning tools. That is a project I really liked building. It's a great way to store your tools because I can move them around. Perfect. I'm thinking about redoing it this upcoming year, more like a tea table, a turntable tool stand. I think would be great where you could rotate it around. It's a project I'm exploring. Tell me if any of you are interested in that. And behind the lathe is the rest of my power equipment, including a drying wall that goes all the way up to the 14-foot high ceilings. This is where I dry all my wood. This is a warehouse, and I don't have a yard or anything like that, which is one thing I'm really excited about. Yes, me and my father combining shops is going to be a smaller shop overall, and there are going to be 2 people in there, more equipment, but all of this storage stuff right here can go outside, out back, behind a lean-to or something like that. It doesn't have to be inside to dry properly, especially since this has been an unair-conditioned warehouse. It really doesn't matter about that. So we're going to be gaining a lot of space compared to this shop here, simply because we're not going to have all my storage complex. But my tools are probably going to have to change. So what do I have in my shop? I got a thickness planer. I'll go over that in a second. I got a nice drum sander. That was my major acquisition back in 2018 that we discussed over there. I have an X-Carve CNC, which I do quite a bit of lettering and stuff like that. The bad thing is, I actually have, this is my second X-Carve. I actually downsized it from the largest one that I got the first time, and the table I got for it was built for the large one. I've really got to condense that down to save size, and I have some good ideas on a frame and panel design that will allow me to have a lot more storage for other stuff inside it. I also have a large benchtop drill press which has an oscillating function. If you ever get this kind, forget the oscillating function. I think it was a waste of money, but I didn't know that back then. I have my rolling Cyclone Dust Deputy shop vac set up. I also have a rigid jointer, a rigid belt sander, a DeWalt miter saw, and a DeWalt scroll saw, and that's about all the power tools I have. I did get rid of the vintage DeWalt thickness planer for this new one over the holidays. I got a, I guess they call it a DeWalt 735. Was not planning on getting this. In fact, I'd kind of sworn off in 2018 buying any more universal motored power tools. I wanted to go more for durability, getting the traditional phased power tools from here on out, because I know I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. But they had a Black Friday sale on these for about $470, which is a huge discount. So me thinking I could get it at that discount, then sell that DeWalt planer, and I also got a surprise order from a toy store for a bunch of tops that would cover this cost. So it was kind of, I ended up about $250 in on this thing. I thought it was a worthwhile investment, and I could put off getting a full-size thickness planer for a decade or so, because these have been made for long enough that I know parts will be available. That DeWalt that I had, parts are getting scarce because DeWalt's gone through several companies out there and they've sold off their inventory. So if anything ever went wrong with it, when I was kind of SOL. I have faith that even if something goes wrong with this one, it's repairable. And then around the corner from all these power tools, I have the shop vac I built this past year, and my dad's metal cabinet that we've been putting all our chemicals on. So, come back over and I'll give you an overall view. There you go. You'll notice that even though my shop is fairly small, I do place a premium on having open spaces. Just because, you know, with the lathe, I'm pulling shavings off the ceiling. So I can, when I'm turning bowls, shavings are going way over there, and it's knee deep sometimes. So if you have a lot of tools around your lathe, it takes forever to clean up. Whereas in this setup, a broom and, you know, my trash can, 3 or 4 trips out to the dumpster, and my shop is in this shape. And I was turning just this morning, and it takes that long to clean up. So not that big a deal when you have things spread out. Which is why in small shops you have to have things, except for your major tools, on wheels. And speaking about major tools, I did gloss over accidentally the big investment I had this year. As most all of y'all that follow me know, that I got me a pretty decent table saw this past year because of my frustration in batch production with the saw I had. I have a couple videos out there explaining it, explaining why I chose this one over stuff from Rigid and Powermatic, and the accessories I got with it. The only thing I've added since then is I did upgrade the miter gauge to one made by Jessam, just because they had a sale going on earlier in the year, and I happened to have the cash at the time. That stock one that came with the saw, I did not like it at all. This seems to be performing a lot better. I probably will not do a review on it, but you'll be seeing it in the videos I do. Oh, and the last corner of the shop, I have my kiln, and I kind of store all my stuff for art markets, which, as y'all know, that's where most of my income comes from, working art markets. But you will notice I have my collection of router tables right here. Yes, there are 3 router tables here. The very first one I built, which has a little box making jig, which I made a bunch of boxes for art markets using this little table in my apartment. It has doors, and both my quarter cable, the full-size 2.5 horsepower, and Rigid worked in this little tiny router table. When I upgraded to the woodworking school, a long time ago now, I did upgrade to this so I could do more stuff with students. And those of you who have seen some of my production videos know that I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. More hate than anything. Not great. In fact, I very rarely use this. My most commonly used router table is this thing right here. I put it in the bench vise of my work table. I put a little trim router right here, and I just clamp a board across, and that's the best router table I've got in my shop right now. Hence, my very first project video. Yes, I've been doing YouTube for 9 years. We passed 100,000 subscribers this year. And over all that time, I've never really did the traditional project video. You know, one where, you know, you build a project. It's more of a demonstration on how you built it. And some people will break out, you know, 6 or 10 mini videos to really dive deep into the different elements. So give you a entertaining video and then something there more expansive for those that want it, and maybe sell a woodworking plan to do that one. That's how almost every YouTuber woodworker makes most of their money, and I've never done anything like that one. So my very first one I'm going to be starting this week is going to be making a combination outfeed table and router table for my new table saw. Plus, I kind of need something a little bit more stable than this for some projects I have in the coming year. Production work that I can sell to y'all. Which kind of leads to the reflection projection aspect of today's video. Yes, this past year we passed 100,000 subscribers. A huge milestone that's pretty much meaningless because its views account more than anything, and we're getting close to 9 million views on this channel, which I think is a more impressive number. Things I've learned in this past year, I've done a bunch of types of videos, and strangely the ones that go against all YouTube rules, my hour-plus long videos where I do a deep dive in a specific subject, are the ones that do the best. And personally, they're the ones I like making the most because they allow me to scratch that teacher's itch a lot more than just a simple demonstration. So in 2020, my plan is to dive deep in that. Now, in 2019, behind the scenes, probably for 8 months of the year, I was really pushing hard to gain sponsorship for one major project. And this project was going to expand over 16 to 20 videos. I wanted to do a building science video series targeting a high school class, because I know a lot of schools are closing down projects, or more than likely, what's happening is the teachers that have been in those jobs are retiring out, and because the system has not really supported the education aspects for so many decades now, there aren't a lot of teachers that can move into those spots that have the experience, knowledge, and resources to be able to teach them. I would love to create an educational resource that those kinds of teachers could use as kind of a guideline. You can't teach on YouTube. I've preached that forever. YouTube is nothing more than a multimedia textbook. But I would like to organize a lesson plan that they could somewhat follow and modify for their students on the building science. And I wanted to use a tiny house build. Yeah, tiny houses were they're a fad right now. And I say they're a fad because the stuff that is being promoted online, on TV and stuff like that, the quality of those builds are, for lack of a better term, crap. They are not going to last long. In fact, a lot of times I think that they go against the ethos of the tiny home movement, and that they're recyclable. And because they become so popular in media, you see a lot of mobile home people that are, I've got, in this country area that I live, there are, I think, 2 major tiny home village sales centers, and all they are manufactured homes. They're places that are designed to last 20, maybe 30 or 40 years, and then be demolished. And that's not good quality building science. And people are spending $70,000 to $100,000 for these things when they could build something themselves that will last generations for, $20,000. It's not that hard to do. And I would love to have that kind of class series where maybe a homeschool group could build a tiny house a year, sell it, and let that fund the next home year's building, so that with maybe a little seed funding, a school or a class or a group could have a continuing education year after year. I love that idea. And the tiny home is just the smallest form factor you could use to cover all the aspects of building science, from roofing, moisture barriers, air barriers, HVAC, plumbing, electric, all that kind of stuff. Now, I wouldn't be the expert on all these, but my main focus would be the woodworking, the joinery, being able to express how building a small box translates to building a home using timber framing, stick framing, ICB blocking, all that kind of stuff. But 8 months of trying to get a sponsorship willing to put that out, I couldn't even get feedback from them. In fact, funny story, I actually got in touch with one of the principals at one of the biggest advertising agencies in this country that has held the contract for one of the biggest big box stores since the beginning when they started the big box store. That principal forwarded my information and told them, you need to talk to this person. This isn't really advertising, so we can't handle it, but this would be a great opportunity for y'all. And they wouldn't even call me back. And I have a feeling it's because nobody's ever done any kind of course structured like that and been able to see the result. So nobody wants to take the risk. So one of my big goals this year is I'm going to take basically 1 or 2 months off of doing all my production work, all my video work and stuff like that, and I'm going to film a video series. I'm going to call it a prerequisite. It would be like something that a 9th grader would take before they went into other aspects of the craft. Maybe they want to make a cabinet, be a cabinet maker. Well, they would take this prerequisite course, and then the next course would be on cabinet making, or furniture making, or home construction, or general carpentry, or boat building, or green woodworking, or you can see all the different aspects, but all of those genres have a base level of knowledge that would be covered in a prerequisite, so that when they went to those areas, they don't have to worry about learning how to sharpen tools, or what grain direction is, or those kinds of stuff. So an organized lesson plan over 16 weeks, a semester in a high school class or something like that, I think would be a really good asset. And I'm going to take those 2 months off and do it. The very first project I'm starting tomorrow is going to be that router table. The next week is I'm going to tackle my slacker stack, which if those of you all follow me in the wood turning world know what that means. And I'm going to turn probably 20 or 30 projects, try and film 1 per day, and then I'll spread those, get those done, and I can spread those releases out for the entire year, so that when I take this 2 months off to dedicate towards this prerequisite series, people will still have stuff coming from me. And when the prerequisite series comes out, they won't be inundated with hand tool work or cabinetry work or stuff like that. The people that expect turning from me, they'll be able to get a taste of that turning. And after I get through the slacker stack, we're working on the prerequisite class. After that, I have a couple different ways I could go for more major projects. I have a table design I've wanted to accomplish for quite a long time. It's a traditional design, but I've never seen people do the joinery tactics I'm going to use. That's going to be what's original, and it's something that could translate to a lot of different furniture forms, furniture styles, but I haven't seen anybody, even in old vintage books, that have tried it this way, and I don't understand why. So I'd like to do a nice project video with the extra 6 to 8 in-depth stuff for the people that want to pay for that kind of stuff on that kind of table construction. And then from there, I don't know where we will go as far as major projects. Y'all can tell me in the comments what y'all want. But as always, it's going to be educational based, or it's going to be my artsy-fartsy ones, which I use the videography to really show people the details, the educational aspects. So no matter what it's going to be, it's always going to be worth the effort style. Now in 2019, I did do some projects that were major flops. That English square build, I did a video on it. They did not sell whatsoever. I don't know why, but the French squares, they sell like hotcakes. I'm on my second batch of them. I'm about out of dovetail markers, which I did a video on video on making those. I will probably do another batch run, except this time they will be in aluminum, because I now have a table saw with the power and consistency that I can risk the more expensive materials. I didn't want to risk aluminum stock on that DeWalt, because so many of those got thrown away because they weren't accurate. Also in 2019, I tried some editorial pieces. I'm not quite sure how well those went over. I think they more hurt me than they did anything best. More personality-based stuff, and yeah, they just didn't do what I did. But some of my tour videos and critique videos did do well, so it's kind of, I don't quite understand what's going on there. I might continue to explore those, I might not. Who knows? Well, I hope you enjoyed this little tour, kind of reflection of how we did last year, planning for what we're going to be do this year. I can't thank y'all enough for all the support you've offered me this year and the growth this channel has had. Hopefully next year will be even better. Who knows until the end of the year. I've given up on trying to figure out what's going to be popular on YouTube. I'm just making stuff that I think will be evergreen and stuff that I would enjoy seeing myself and I enjoy making. So that's why we're going the educational route so hard this year. But after all is said and done, I want you to remember that it is always worth the effort to learn, create, and share with others. Y'all be safe and have fun.